Hi, I'm Jennifer Wetke, and this is my case study, When Ethics and Policy Collide. So our case summary is this. James, age 15, used threats to coerce David, age 13, into holding a pair of brass knuckles for him when he was summoned to the office to speak to the assistant principal, Richard. This took place on campus, in the hallway, in the afternoon on a school day. In Richard's office and in front of the school officer, James admitted that he threatened David into holding the brass knuckles. David and James were both taken to the youth detention facility to be charged with felony possession of a prohibited weapon on school property. Board policy calls for a 45-day expulsion and enrollment in the district's disciplinary alternative school. Boys were taken away in handcuffs. Richard filled out the expulsion paperwork for James, but he did not for David. His boss told him to fill out the paperwork or receive a written reprimand. A legal issue in this scenario is the possession of a weapon is a felony offense. There's no getting around that. Ethical issues, there are quite a few in my opinion. First, it's unethical to hold a victim accountable for a perpetrator's actions and coercion. Second, due process was completely ignored. David's side of the story was never heard. The situation should have been discussed with the principal and with the parents before taking the students to a detention facility. There was no communication or collaboration. Handcuffs were not necessary. This was undue force and embarrassing. The school officer also is not authorized to enforce ed code, so that was confusing. The student's behavior history should be taken into consideration, and the district and school board policies can be petitioned, and that was not even brought up. Here's my statement. Richard has the choice of upholding an unethical decision to expel an innocent student, damaging said student's future and going against his personal beliefs, or he can accept an official reprimand that could impact his own career. The facts. People involved. James, age 15, he has a history of fighting. He's a leader of a rough group of boys. He's big and he's from the south side, the wrong side of town. David is 13. He's an honor student, a band member, no discipline history. He's small and he's from the right side of town. Richard is a new assistant principal, brand new. We have David's mom and James' mom. David's mom is very involved and very shocked by the situation, and James' mom is pretty jaded and not as involved. We don't know her situation, what's going on. We also have the school officer and the director of secondary education. This all takes place at Rocket Junior High. Parts of it in the hallway, some in Richard's office. Also, the boys are taken to the youth detention facility and then sent to the DAEP, the Alternative Education Program. Programs that are involved that are key and important to this case are the zero tolerance policy, the DAEP program itself, the fact that Southside students are being bussed in, and the fact that there's a police officer on campus. So now it's time to review and prioritize and evaluate our ethical dimensions. So first, sending David to the DAEP not only impacts his education, but also potentially puts him in harm. It groups him with other students who have a history of violence. This is unjust. Taking away a young, innocent, non-threatening student in handcuffs violates the trust of the student and the student's family. In addition, what kind of message is this sending to the community that you're going to take away a kid in handcuffs? All students and families who attend the school are not bussed in from Southside will have concerns. So all of them are going to be like, is my kid next? What's going on? There will be repercussions and backlash and loss of trust at the school. More questions that I have to ask and ethical dimensions that need to be explored. Are the students from the South Side being treated fairly? The principal didn't even hesitate to sign the papers and send James away. What kind of impact does this have on families over there? And what's the impact on the students who don't have family support? Like James, his mom just said, fine, send him there. She didn't cry and make a big deal about it. Also, the principal and the mothers were not consulted before they're taking their children away. Their children are minors, and they were just pulled right out of the school without even any kind of discussion or collaboration. I also wonder, was an appeal filed to reduce the discipline? I didn't hear anything about that. Was the principal in agreement with the decision? Was there a discussion? I don't know. What about a discussion between the school site and the district? Was there any kind of collaboration on what should happen and what the discipline should be, what was just? What about James? He was making progress. He owned up to his culpability. He was getting better grades. He was making better choices. Was the 45-day expulsion just for him? And I'm wondering, is the board zero tolerance and having the school officer presence on campus, is that a result of bias? Is that because they're busing in this student? So they said, I guess we better have this program for those students that we're busing in. And this is an issue, in my opinion, of transparency. So here's my options. First, I can refuse to fill out the expulsion paperwork and accept the reprimand. I can fill out the paperwork and send both boys to the DAEP, or I could explore ethical and legal alternatives. Obviously, whatever I choose needs to be legal and ethical. So we've got to now evaluate these options and analyze, is each decision ethical? So if we don't sign, is that ethical? Okay, well, refusing to sign the paperwork, it seems like, okay, yes, you're standing up for David. But really, I don't see how that's a solution at all, because if the assistant principal doesn't sign the paperwork, somebody else is going to. So this really doesn't solve the situation. Second, we could sign the paperwork and send David to the DAEP when he's innocent. And this goes against all ethical principles because it's not just. The school leader needs to set the example of having integrity and making ethical choices. Also, in this situation, the leader is putting self-interest, his own job, before the common good and not following his moral compass. Finally, we could look at alternative solutions. So making a decision without exploring all options and involving all stakeholders is not ethical. There is not any evidence in this case that there was any kind of collaboration or ethical decision-making process followed before automatically disciplining these two students. So my decision is pretty clear. Oops. My decision would be to explore alternative ethical solutions because I need to advocate for ethical and legal decisions. So here's my action plan. I need to follow ethical decision-making models, first of all, because that was not done here. Step one, that would be very important, is to meet with all stakeholders, parents, students, principals, district leadership. We need to communicate and model ethical behavior. Second, I would collaborate on alternative consequences for both students, not just the one who has no history whatsoever, but we need to include maybe restorative justice. And is there a better solution than just sending the boys away? What's the appeal process? At this step in time, we should be cultivating ethical behaviors in others by bringing others in to collaborate and modeling ethical decision-making. Finally, we need to make efforts to revise the board policy, the no tolerance policy and the appeal process. What's going on? Why are they in place? Are they a benefit? Is there something better that we could do that would be more ethical and more helpful for our students? Do these policies really reflect the goals and values of the district and of the school? So at this point in time, we're undertaking and implementing ethical work in the school setting. So this is my plan and my case study, and thank you so much for listening. And I had a great time doing it. Thank you.